In case you don't know about pedal boards, basically, it's a board that holds all of the effect pedals for your instrument. So these are effect pedals, and each pedal has its own sound. If you've listened to punk rock, post-hardcore, that's the sound of a distortion pedal. A lot of pop music in the 80s is typically characterized by the sound of chorus pedal, and if you've ever listened to shoegaze, it's a genre of music that sounds very distant and spacey. That's the sound of a reverb pedal. Now, pedals are typically associated with guitarists, but really any musician, sound effects artist, or anyone that's just creating in the audio space can use pedals to create a unique sound. And once you have enough pedals, you can eventually build your own pedal board. So let's talk about it. Obviously, the first thing you're going to need are pedals. There are many different types of pedals you can get, but the typical ones include tuners, compressors, there are your gain pedals, which are overdrive, distortion, and fuzz, and then there are time-based effects, which include delay, reverb, chorus, and tremolo. Something that I've opted to do on my own pedal board was to get one pedal for each effect just so I have all of my bases covered. But depending on the genre of music, you can really get by with a bare bones setup. So in the end, you have creative freedom with all of these different effects. So the second thing you're going to need is the actual board to hold all of your pedals together. There are many options you could get from Sweetwater or Guitar Center. There are many different sizes depending on like how many pedals you have. You also have that option of just DIYing it. It's a really fun thing to do, so I'd highly recommend doing that. Personally, for me, I just needed something like not that big. So what I ended up doing was DIYing it myself, and I built my own suitcase pedal board and it fit my needs perfectly. All in all, for the board, I'd really just consider how many pedals you currently have, or maybe consider just how many you might get in the future. The next thing you'll need is Velcro. So I have Velcro on all my pedals, and the importance of this is that it'll eventually move and shift throughout the board, so it just prevents that from happening. So definitely get some Velcro for your pedal board. Once you have all of that set, you're going to need patch cables to connect everything together. So this is a standard patch cable you'll see. Something you'll also see are flat patch cables, and I'd highly recommend these, especially over the standard patch cables, specifically because they're flatter and they allow your pedals to sit closer together, and it gives you more room in case you want more pedals on your pedal board. Something I don't recommend that you'll see online are these alternatives to patch cables. These are known as guitar couplers, and the problem with this is that they don't flex. It'll literally bend the inside of the pedal, so that's just something to keep in mind. It does look clean when you're using it, but stray away from this. So the last thing you'll need is the power supply, and there are many options. A very cost-effective solution at this is daisy chaining your pedals. So basically, you have a power supply and it connects to this really long cable, and the single cable just connects to each pedal through this one single cable. Daisy chaining is a cost-effective solution, but the issue there is that it introduces electronic interference in your sound. Basically, it's just going to lead to a not clean sound, and then all of the effects will have some buzzing to it. The best way to go about this is having a power supply that introduces dedicated power to each pedal individually. Once you have all the equipment you need for your pedal board, it can get kind of confusing, like where you should be plugging in things and how just like everything should be ordered. So I'm going to give you a few tips just to get you started. When you look at your pedals, you're going to see input and output jacks, and the order of the pedal board chain is going to be guitar, input, output, input, output, input, output, so on and so forth, until you reach your guitar amp. So that's how you're going to order the pedal board chain. As far as it goes for the actual order of the pedals, you can pretty much do whatever you want and you're free to experiment, but there is a typical standard when it comes to pedal board order. So usually utility pedals kind of go first, so that would include the tuner and any other utility pedals you might have. And then compressor would be next. You would follow that with the gain pedals and then time-based effects. And the reason that this order is kind of standard is because it really gives you like the least muddy sound. If you go too crazy with the order of the pedals, it'll get muddy really quickly. Like for example, if you put delay before fuzz, it might sound good, but generally it's just not a great way to order your pedals. There are a lot of other interesting arrangements that I found online. So something that's typical in a pedal board chain is putting the reverb last, but something that I've seen was putting tremolo after reverb, and it's an interesting sound. I don't have a tremolo pedal to demonstrate that combination, but if you ever get the chance, just look it up. There are pedals that do that specific combination, but it's insane. I've also been told that putting your fuzz pedal right next to your tuner pedal is a really good combination. And this is because that putting your fuzz pedal really early in the chain, ironically gives it the cleanest fuzz sound. And I guess what that means is that you get the most pure sound when putting your fuzz earliest in the chain. So that might just be something to consider when you're putting together your pedal board. Eventually I'll make another video talking about all of this, but this is more or less the essentials of putting together a pedal board. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching, and eventually I'll put out more videos on a weekly basis, so stick around. and please subscribe if you haven't already.